Night by Paul Davis.
All right, you want to get it out of the way first?
Yeah, hey, Wes, do you know who Paul Davis is?
Absolutely. This is the hit for Paul Davis, by the way, right here. This is the hit.
Actually, there not his biggest one.
No, his biggest one was it was a little more of an up-tempo beat, as I recall.
Yeah, 65 Love Affair.
That's it, 65 Love Affair. And that was like late 70s, early 80s, Paulie?
Yes.
What was the year? Since
Yeah.
you're so you're going Casey Kasem on me here. What year was it, Paulie? Let's go on with the countdown.
For God's sakes. All right.
Well, we looked this up because I was born in 76, and I think I was like 5 or 6 when that song came out.
65 Love Affair came out in 1981.
Yeah.
There you go, 81.
So that
late
would've been
70s,
fine.
early
Yeah.
80s. I'm
right
on it. By the way, Paulie, what year were you
spot on.
born, by the way, Paulie?
1972.
Okay, so there's been 1, 2, 3, 4,
Pope count?
5. This will be your 6th Pope.
Whoa.
How about that?
I was way off on the Pope count.
You might want to check in with a higher being here soon, Paulie. You're off on your Pope count.
My mom is frowning down.
Yes,
upon
she
me for
is.
sure.
Your mom is not happy. So there you have it. There was actually a pope who was only pope for 33 days, by the way. John Paul I was elected Pope 26th of August, 1978. He died 33 days later.
All right, so he was easy to forget,
Yes,
Paulie. We'll give you a pass on him.
I think Wes gets me. Wes gets this show, and
He does.
I like this a lot right now.
Yeah.
He definitely gets this show, no doubt about it. All right, Wes, let's talk some sports here, and I guess we'll start with basketball, and we'll start with this Syracuse team that, again, it's a brand new team coming in next year, like so many others right now. They kept J.J. Starling and Donnie Freeman. Everybody else hit the portal, and they've brought an infusion of talent. I'm not going to ask you about their entire class coming in, but I do want to ask you about the 2 ACC guys who I'm sure you've seen quite a bit.
Ibrahim
Nate George coming in as the point
Swarway and
guard.
Nate George, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct. So tell me about these two guys and how you think they might fit Red's system.
Well, Nate, number one, is arguably one of the more gifted point guards in the ACC from an assist turnover perspective. Now, his number got better as the year went on, Steve, but there were times this year, I had him in the triple overtime game against Clemson at Littlejohn where he was terrific from a scoring and an assist perspective. Ibrahim Swarway he's going to be great at Syracuse because all he does is defend and rebound. He does not score beyond 6 or 8 feet. So he'll be fine in terms of what I think Syracuse wants to do, or at least if Boeheim were still coaching, he'd be perfect. Look, in this light, I think George is the get. He was going to be one of the more experienced point guards in the ACC next year. And I think if Red's going to open things up offensively, and the way I envision with Starling and Freeman, Nate George is there to get them the ball. Now, he's going to score occasionally, but if Nate George averages more than like 11 points or 12 points a game, that'll be gravy for me. Now, if he averages 8 to 10 assists, I won't be surprised, especially with those two guys on the back end.
With Nate George, Syracuse really struggled at the point guard position with defense last year. Is he a capable defender?
Yeah, look at the steals number. He's right up there in terms of deflections and things like that. I would like to see more of the analytic stuff. I don't have that available to me, but I bet his analytic number is pretty huge too, Paulie, because I think he's a long guard. He's a lot bigger than you think watching him on television. You see him in person and you stand next to him at a practice, you understand he's a taller kid. And look, let's be honest too, he's a Toronto kid, right? He played his prep ball in Arizona, but he's from Canada, closer to home, 4 hours-ish, right? So therefore I can see that, Syracuse was a good destination. That and probably the financial part of it was good for him as well.
I want to follow up on the center position, if I could, Wes. You mentioned what Swarway brings to the table from Georgia Tech. Syracuse also went out and signed William Kyle from UCLA. And one of the concerns that this fan base seems to have is that both guys are, quote-unquote, only 6'9". Athletic guys, big wingspan, they can defend. Any concern on your end if their starting center, and at this point their starting center would be one of those two guys, any concern that they're only 6'9"?
No, not in Swarway's case. I haven't seen Kyle play, Steve, so it'd be impossible for me to tell you about him. But in Swarway's case, no, because he plays like he's 7'1", 7'2". He gets to a lot of shots. He affects the game from a post position defensively. In fact, I would tell you, as I said earlier, defense and rebounding are going to be his calling cards for the time being. Now, he'll get second chance points around the basket and things like that. but he plays a lot bigger than what he's listed for sure. I thought he, Dongo, all those kids played bigger than they were. Dongo's got a wingspan, I think, of almost like 9 feet or something. Suare's in that neighborhood. So, yeah, I think that when you're talking about Ibrahim Suare from Guinea, I think he's a guy who can affect the game much, much more than what he's listed from a height size.
You know, Wes, what do you make of the transfer portal? You know, is it weird for you to see guys like Syracuse took 2 guys from Georgia Tech?
Sure.
You know, what do you make of this? That used to be taboo of taking guys from within your conference.
Paulie, we don't have any rules. We don't have any governance. We don't have any structure. It's all on the table now. I mean, I got over it. I wouldn't say I got over it because I saw something happen last week that I thought, well, you got to be kidding me. I mean, a kid signs with North Carolina from Maryland, Levon Johnson, a defensive tackle, and he signs an NIL agreement with North Carolina. Now, whether or not he was going to get there academically or not, I have no idea, and I don't think anybody cares about that part anymore either from that perspective. And then that afternoon, the NIL deal at Texas was better. So he actually hit 3 schools in a day. He went Maryland, Carolina, and Texas all in one day. So, I mean, if that's kind of where we're going with this, fine. I mean, we're going to have 365-day-a-year free agency. Like, get ready for football. You're going to have guys just play in 4 games and then shut it down. Nigel Pack pulled it off in basketball this year. I mean, I was more hurt in February than Nigel Pack was. I mean, it's just what it is, guys. I mean, we've turned over all of this freedom of movement. We've made it literal. And now we're going to decide the House settlement, and then they may award more eligibility. I mean, Ian Shefflin's going to play longer than Roosevelt was in office. I mean, it's crazy, though, right? I mean, we just got to if we're going to go this route, and apparently we are because nobody's going to step up and create a rules and regulations, structure, whatever you want to call it. If we're going to go this route, the endless cash pit, all that, then get ready. I mean, we're just going to have basically AAU basketball and AAU football every year. And eventually, you know, fans are going to throw their arms up in the air. I mean, now people may get used to it and say, great, they're finally getting their dollars or whatever they deserve. But, you know, traditionalists, old heads like me, they get older. I mean, I think we're already probably, nobody wants to say this, but we might already be losing a small percentage of fans as it is with just this kind of stuff. If we exclamate it even more, Steve and Paulie, I'm not so sure we won't lose more fans, to be honest.
Well, what do you think of schools like Tennessee? And we had Fran Brown on last week, and it made big news with Trevor Pena of kind of drawing a line in the sand and saying, hey, we're not paying that much to these guys.
Think about it, guys. I mean, everybody's got their price, right? And everybody's got a ceiling. Apparently nobody thinks there's a floor, but there's a ceiling for everybody. I mean, and Fran Brown's just being honest, and I respect that. You know, you're not going to get that money here, but you might get it somewhere else. The only guy we've seen publicly turn back is Nico last week. Nico held out. I mean, I don't know you guys have, folks in Central New York follow the Bills, right? I'm sure the Bills had holdouts at some point, right? Sure. And at some point, either they work it out or they don't. And with Nico wanted more money, or Nico's camp wanted more money, because I certainly don't want to hurt the young man's feelings. Wink, wink. But his camp wanted more money. And if he wanted more money and Tennessee wasn't going to give it to him, so what did that basically turn into? A holdout. And for me, Josh Heupel just stood on principle. I think Fran Brown stood on principle last week when he said what he said, right? I'm just being honest. And I think that's part of what we're getting ready to see more of, fellas, is we're going to see coaches say, hey, look, I can only do so much because I don't want it to affect the impact. I don't want it to affect the structure of our program. And I think we also got to get comfortable with that everybody's got a different ceiling. Maybe nobody has a floor, but they certainly have a ceiling when it comes to the dollars they can spend on this. And think about it too, Paulie and Steve, we're also going to come into a scenario at some point where schools are going to have to make really hard decisions. And I think we all know what that is. If the price keeps going up, schools are going to potentially have to really stare in the mirror and say, are we getting a return on our investment, if you will?
Yeah. Really well said. Do you see a solution? And I know that you could probably talk for 20 minutes on that, but is there anything that you would, if you were in charge, would you recommend that everything gets, that the dust settles here?
I would create a collective bargaining agreement for football and men's and women's basketball. That'd be number one. I create a collective bargaining agreement that includes, it's interesting, isn't it, that apparently one of the topics in Dallas this week at the College Football Playoff Committee meetings is the potential that teams who draw bigger ratings would somehow receive favoritism in the selection process. Oh, really? That's going to be part of it now? Okay, what does that have to do with winning and losing?
Yeah.
And so if that's part of it, then let's go ahead and start sharing the television revenue money with the players, okay? Just kind of like it does in the NFL. But let's create a collective bargaining agreement. And with that would come some degree of a union. That's going to get uncomfortable for some schools. A salary cap, which I think is really important to create balance and competitiveness. And maybe even post-career benefits from health perspective, which also apparently is important now too. And I think that is important. But let's be honest, until we go the route more toward a professional structure, we're going to be in this cycle. And I just don't know how long the money lasts in this cycle, Steve, more than anything else.
Wes, we got to run here, and you've been very gracious with your time, but I do want to ask you one quick football question in regards to Kyle McCord. We know the draft is coming up here on Thursday. You've seen a lot of Kyle McCord. Do you think he has the potential to be a starting quarterback, a regular starter in the NFL?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited for where Kyle McCord may land, and I hope it happens on the first two nights. I don't know that it'll happen tomorrow night, but I'm fairly confident it could happen Friday night. And I will caution, this is something I've said for 20 years now doing the NFL as I have, Steve. If Kyle McCord gets to about midway Saturday and hasn't been taken, he doesn't need to sign. He doesn't want to get drafted because then he needs to find his best option. He's talented enough, I think, as a quarterback to go win for somebody. Absolutely. And he could be one of those guys. I'm not saying he's Tom Brady, but he could be one of those guys taken in the 100s that ultimately ends up coming back to roost and having a terrific career. I think he's going to be really, really good in the NFL cycle for sure.
Wes, one last one for me. 2 years now you've been working with Jim Boeheim. What's that been like, working with him?
It's been great.
He's a huge fan of mine, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, he tells me he thought you were taller the first time he met you. I've really enjoyed it. Coach has been delightful to work with. We've had great conversations on and off the air. I think he's brought a refreshing candor to broadcast that I've appreciated. I think his personality is what his personality is. And in today's broadcasting world, that's not a bad thing. Off the floor, we have had great meals. The foodie that Jim Boeheim is something that I love. I actually got him to go to Merritt's in Chapel Hill this year to eat a BLT when we were there doing a Carolina game. And he walked in, he goes, well, so what's the deal? And I said, you get a BLT. And he got a BLT and loved it. And the people there, when we walked in, and Merritt's is an old traditional place. Coach Smith used to go there. My dad used to go there years ago. But when he walked into Merritt's and people realized Jim Boeheim was in a Chapel Hill eatery, it was awesome. It was unbelievable.
Oh, that is great. Man, Wes, we wish we could talk to you all day. Thanks so much for coming on. You're one of our favorite guests. Thanks for the insight. Be well. Hopefully you get some downtime here in the coming weeks, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
All right, guys. Take care. Be well. See you soon.
All right. The great Wes Durham joining us here on the show. We'll take a time out. When we return, we'll get to our weekly SOS House Call. We are back after this on ESPN Radio.